Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in to take in the notes like this. So I think this will be a really good job of having complete and total access to me and the notes, and that way I can split my time a little bit in class. So we'll get started here with price elasticity of demand, PED. Obviously, we'll talk about definition, measurement, all that fun stuff. And then we'll also get some help from Econ Plus Dow and ACDC, and we'll get going. Okay, so I want you to watch this video. You can do it right now, and I'll be back waiting for you. So you can pause me and then go watch this video, which I've linked in Canvas. Okay, welcome back. So you can write these down. You can answer the questions throughout. So, and then I'll just you'll have my context here. So, price elasticity of demand. So, what does it do? How do we measure it? So, it measures demand changes with price variations. It's calculated by dividing the percentage change in quantity demanded by the percentage change in price. For example, if a drink's price, as in the example, goes from $2 to $2.20, that could lead to a demand drop from 600,000 to 480,000. All right, the PED would be -2. Obviously, we're gonna get rid of that negative sign, right? But this means consumers are indeed sensitive to price changes, and the negative sign, like I said before, is disregarded since demand typically slopes downward anyway. So, right, price elasticity of demand. Okay. So go ahead and you can pause me. You can kind of answer questions or write things down as you see fit. And I'm going to keep going. So you pause me, you fast forward me, you do what you need to do in this video. Okay. All right. So continuing, right? As you look at the text here, you could read, you can just listen to me explain, you could do both. All right. So if it's greater than 1, that makes the demand elastic, right? A small price change causes a bigger change in demand. If it equals 1, it's what we call unitary, right? So price and demand change in the same proportion. If it's less than 1, demand is inelastic. Price changes don't affect the demand very much, right? Of course, there's going to be some extreme cases like something is perfectly elastic and you'll get that horizontal curve, and it'll equal, or if it equals infinity, or if it's perfectly inelastic, right? That's a vertical curve. The PED will be 0. Okay, so we have all kinds of examples, which we'll get into here in a minute, like in this diagram. Okay, so the diagram shows how the steepness of the demand curve links to elasticity, right? So a horizontal curve means perfectly elastic. Even a tiny price change kills demand. A flat curve, like you can see in D1, is elastic. Price changes lead to large shifts in demand. A steep curve that you can see in D2 is inelastic. Price changes don't affect demand very much. And then the vertical curve in D3 is perfectly inelastic. Demand stays fixed no matter the price. All right, so take a peek at these different, the steepnesses of these different curves and how that might apply to different part A's and paper 1 part B's. Okay, so elasticity is not the same everywhere on the demand curve. At higher prices, demand is usually elastic. Consumers react strongly to price changes. If it's in the middle, right, where say like the PED would equal 1, meaning there's proportional changes. At lower prices, demand becomes inelastic. People keep buying even if the price changes. Why does this matter? This matters because firms think about where on the curve they are when setting prices. Okay, so take a peek at the differences in elasticity there. Okay. All right, I want you to check in now with ACDC, talking about the elasticity of demand, right? And you come on back when you're ready. Okay, so determinants of price elasticity of demand. All right, so substitutes increase demand elasticity. So if there's more alternatives, that's going to lead obviously to a higher elasticity. Necessities, on the other hand, are inelastic. Consumers continue buying despite prices rising. I remember in the first couple of weeks of school, I talked about baby formula when CC and Lucci really needed it, and especially during CC and COVID, right? The price did not matter. I had to get it, right? The same can be said for like gasoline, right? Luxuries are elastic, of course. It's easier for consumers to reduce spending on them, right? Proportion of income affects elasticity. Small expenses are inelastic, while larger ones are obviously elastic, right? So how much you have on hand and your ability to purchase, right? High income consumers are less sensitive to price changes than low income consumers, obviously, right? You can think about any product and the elasticity couldn't matter on how much you actually have to spend, right? Someone who's very rich is not going to have to worry about the price of eggs in a given week or the price of milk. Someone who does not have that kind of money, they're going to be thinking about substitutes. They're going to be thinking about not spending, right? So demand becomes more elastic over time as consumers find adjustments or adjust their habits. Are they shopping at Whole Foods? Are they shopping at Aldi, right? All right, so the determinants of price elasticity demand continued here. All right, so revenue equals price times quantity sold. All right, pretty obvious, pretty simple, right? PED helps first figure out how a price change affects revenue. So if demand is elastic, lowering price boosts total revenue. Raising price cuts it. Right? So you have to think about what that could look like. Be thinking about examples that you could potentially use in one of your papers, right? If demand is inelastic, raising prices boosts total revenue and lowering price reduces it, right? So if something is inelastic, if something is like you are guaranteed to buy it, firms technically can just raise the price and make out with more revenue, right? If we were sitting in class arguing about this, of course, Mr. Greco would be like, "Oh, is that fair?" Right? Adam Smith would be like, "Yeah." Right? So at the midpoint, PED equals 1, revenue is maximized. So this diagram shows the relationship between elasticity, price, and revenue. Okay. Okay, so commodities like oil or wheat usually have inelastic demand, right? They're necessities and don't have many substitutes, right? Gotta eat, gotta get from point A to point B. On the other hand, manufactured goods are often more elastic. They're luxuries or they have lots of alternatives. But PED isn't perfect. It can change over time as consumer behaviors shift. All right, so PED assumes only price changes, but in reality, income or taste can change too, which we know, which we've discussed. So firms never know for sure how consumers will react. So PED is an estimate, not a guarantee. All right. So, all right, ending here. This is the paper 1, part B. All right. So here's the rubric for it. We will have talked about it in class prior to this. All right, so it is 15 marks. We're going to spend more time on this, like on the day of the exam. So here's the practice one that I've included here. So using a real world example, evaluate the usefulness of price elasticity of demand for producers trying to increase their revenues by raising prices. Awesome. So I want you to go ahead and work on this with a partner. Okay, so you can do this with a partner. You can also do it by yourself, right? You have options here. I want you to do the same thing that we've done, except if you're doing it with a partner, you both can upload the same exact thing, right? So I just want to know who the partner is. You do it by yourself, great, okay? And then just kind of put both your names on the paper if you're working in partners, okay? So you'll have some guided notes to go with this. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for watching Econ Plus Doll and ACDC. All right, and we'll get to work on that. Thank you, friends.